Hello friends, good afternoon. As per yesterday's session, so we have discussed about what is class, how to create a class, and what is object, what is a reference variable, to represent the data inside a class, and what are the different ways we have, like instance variables, static variables, local variables. So these are the things we discussed in last class. So as per today's session, I am going to talk about few more concepts in OOPS. What I am going to discuss. First one, I am going to talk about what is self variable. What is self variable? Second one, I am going to talk about constructors. Constructors I am going to discuss. Third one, I am going to talk about declaring instance variables. Declaring instance variables. Declaring instance variables. Right. These are the main things which I am going to discuss as per today's session. Right. So, what is self variable? First, we will see what is self variable. So now, in yesterday class, already we discussed. So whoever having idea on Java or C++ other programming languages. So in Java we have this keyword is there. In Java we have this keyword is there. Coming to Python, instead of this we are using self. That's it. In Java, at the time of writing constructors, we are using this keyword. We are using this keyword. What is the purpose of this? Current variable to discuss, to refer, to represent current variable, we are using this keyword, right? So in Python, instead of this we are going to use self. That's it. There is no difference. So here, what is self? Self is one default variable. This is one default variable. Self is a default variable. So what is the use of this self? By using self variable, right, we can point to current object. By using self variable, what we can do? Right, it will point current object. Right. It is always pointing to current object. Right, here we have super this means what it will do? This will point to the, see here, in other programming language we have this keyword, same in Python we have self keyword. What this will do? It will represent to the current object. It will represent to the current class object. Right, we have super also. Super also is there. What super will do? It will represent to the super class object. This will represent to the current class object. Super will represent to the super class object. In other programming languages, C++, Java, we have this keyword is there to represent current class object. But coming to Python, in Python we don't have this keyword. Instead of this keyword, we are going to use self. What is the purpose of self? Right, to point current object, current object, we have to use this self keyword. Self variable, this is the reference variable. Self is nothing but default reference variable, we can say like this. Default reference variable. It is always point to current object. What is self? Self is the default reference variable, right? It is always pointing to current object. right? Instead of this keyword in Python we are using self, nothing is there. By using self, what we can do, we can access instance variables and instance methods of the object. Whenever we created, see, whenever we created the object, see here, just I am taking like this. Here what I am taking, C is equal to customer. Like this I created object. Whenever we created the object got created like this. What is C? C is the reference variable for this object. C is the reference variable for this object, like this. Right. So inside this, what you are getting? You are getting some data. At the time of creating object, once you create object, by default constructor will be executed. Inside constructor, whatever the instance variables are there, all those instance variables will be added to this object. Now, how you can able to access that data? How you can able to access instance variables and instance methods of the object? By using reference, by using self-reference variable, we can able to access. Now assume inside this object we have C number is equal to 101, C name equal to Python Raju, C address is equal to Hyderabad. So like this we have it here. So now how you can able to access this data? By using a reference variable we can able to access. How we have this reference variable C? How we have this reference variable C? Same way we have by default we have one more reference variable for this object which is nothing but self variable. Also is there. This is the default reference variable for current object. So now if anyone asks, this object contains how many number of reference variables? Means two reference variables. One is C is one reference variable, one default reference variable also available, which is nothing but a self variable. For every object, one default reference variable available, which is nothing but a self. By using this reference variable, what we can do? We can access instance variables and instance methods of the current object. We can access instance variables and instance methods of current object at here. Is it clear? What is the self? Self is the default reference variable which is always pointing to the current object. Here this is the object only. Self is the default reference variable which is always pointing to the current object. By using self, what we can do? By using self, we can access instance variables and instance methods of the object. Is it clear? What is self is clear? Self is nothing but a default reference variable. Suppose if you write any constructor or if you write any instance method, compulsory first argument should be reference variable we have to take. Which reference variable we have to take? This self only we have to take. Suppose if you are writing any init method in the sense what? Constructor def underscore init compulsory at least one argument we have to pass. Which argument we have to pass? This self argument we have to pass. After that, if you want, you can take next after self. If you want, you can take any other arguments. Otherwise, no problem according to your requirement. But compulsory one argument must be required, which is nothing but self argument. Same if you write any instance method like this. For instance methods also, first argument should be the self argument we have to take. It here. Is it clear? By using this self, what we can do? We can access instance variables and instance methods of the object. Is it clear? Right here, If you want to do the initialization, if you want to define any instance variables inside the constructor, how we can do? By using self only. Self.c number, self.c name, self.c address, like that. Inside instance method, if you want to access those instance variables inside M1 method, what we are doing? Right, we can access by using self only, self.c number, self.c name, like that we have to access. What is the purpose of self? We can access instance variables and instance methods of the object. What is the self? Self is the default reference variable which is always pointing to the current object. Which is always pointing to the current object. Right? See, inside constructor, at the time of defining constructor and at the time of defining instance method, first argument should be self only we have to take. Self only we have to take. Right? So, next we'll discuss about constructors. What is constructor? Right, init method only. Here in Python, if you see anywhere, if you see any method with the name init, if you see any method with the name init, means just remember that is the constructor. If you go for other programming languages like C++, Java, there also we have constructors. But in C++ and Java, class name and constructor name should be matched. Class name and constructor name should be same. But coming to Python, constructor name always we have to take underscore init underscore only. Constructor also one type of method only. But here constructor name should be init only we have to take. What about method name? Method name we can take any name, no issue. Method name we can take any name, no issue. But coming to constructor method, compulsory we have to take underscore init underscore and one argument compulsory we have to pass, which is nothing but self argument we have to pass. So now here can I write like this? Constructor is nothing but a method only. Constructor is nothing but what? Method only. Constructor also method only. But here, right, constructor name always underscore init underscore only we have to take. Underscore init underscore only we have. Always init only we have to take. Constructor name always underscore init underscore self only we have to take. So next one, right here what you guys are observed. Right, in constructor compulsory one argument we have to pass. Compulsory one argument must be required. In constructors, one argument must be required. One argument must be required, which is self argument. In constructor, one argument must be required, which is the self argument. We have to take. So next one, per class, suppose see, constructor, when constructor will be executed, at the time of creating object, constructor will be executed automatically. constructor will be executed automatically. At the time of creating object, constructor will be executed automatically. Constructor will be executed automatically. What is the job? What is the job of constructor? Right here, the main job of constructor is, the main purpose of constructor is, the main purpose of constructor is declaring and initializing declaring and initializing instance variables, initializing instance variables. Inside constructor, what we are doing? We are declaring instance variables and we are initializing the values to those instance variables also. What we are doing inside constructors? Inside constructor, we are declaring instance variables and we are initializing the values also to those instance variables. Right. So now when constructor will be executed? At the time of creating object, constructor will be executed. Per object, how many number of times constructor will be executed? Only one time. Only one time. Per object, constructor will be executed only one time. Constructor will be executed constructor will be executed only once per object. Per object, constructor will be executed only once. Next, is it mandatory or optional? Constructor is mandatory or optional? Constructor is always optional. Constructor is always optional. But still, if you are not providing constructor at the time of creating object, internally PVM will provide one default constructor. That default constructor will be executed. See, constructor is not mandatory. If user is not providing constructor, but still Python will provide one default constructor. At the time of creating object, that default constructor will be executed. Constructor is mandatory or optional? Constructor is not mandatory. If user is not providing any constructor, no problem. Python will provide one default constructor. That default constructor will be executed at the time of creating the object. That default constructor will be executed at the time of creating the object. Is it clear? Please go through these points once. Constructor is nothing but a method only. Constructor name always underscore init only we have to take, and in constructor one argument must be required, which is nothing but a self argument. At the time of creating object, constructor will be executed automatically. The main purpose of constructor is declaring and initializing the instance variables. Constructor will be executed only once per object. Constructor is not mandatory. If user is not providing any constructor, right, but Python will provide one default constructor. The default constructor will be executed. That default constructor will be executed, right? So these are the main points we have to remember about the constructor. See here, I'll write one constructor example. See here, def underscore init underscore self I am taking like this, right? here what I am going to do, I want to declare and initialize the instance variable. See, constructor name, see method, and that's why here I am taking def keyword. Right here, this is the name of the constructor. Name of the constructor always what? Init only we have to take. Here this is the right one default variable, one compulsory one argument must be required, which is a self argument we have to take. Inside constructor what we are doing, what is the main purpose of constructor? Declaring and initializing the instance variables. How to declare instance variables? By using this self only we can able to declare instance variables. Self dot c number. Here c number is the instance variable. How we are declaring this instance variable? By using self. By using self we are declaring instance variables. C number like this we can take. See here self, right here number, name, address, like this you can able to take. First one always we have to pass self. After self you can take any number of arguments like this. Here self dot c number is equal to c number I am taking. Self dot c number is equal to number I am taking like this. Here whatever the value you will get at the time of creating object, whatever the value you will pass to this number, that number will come under initialize to this instance variable. Next here self dot c name is equal to name. Next self dot c address is equal to address, like this we have to take. Right, at the time of creating object what we will do, we will pass the values, right. So the number whatever the value you will get, at here, that value will go and assign to this instance variable. So like this we have to take constructor. Right, first point, what is the first point? It is a method, that's why here I am taking def keyword. Next compulsory we have to take init name only. Next one argument compulsory we have to pass, which is self. Next self dot c number, like this declaration and initialization we are doing it here. Now is it mandatory? No. If you are not provide this constructor, Python will provide one default constructor. That default constructor will be executed. And when this constructor will be executed, at the time of creating object, automatically constructor will be executed. Per object, how many number of times constructor will be executed? Only once. Constructor will be executed only once per object. Is it clear? So these are the main points we have to remember it here. Right? So these are the main points we have to remember about a constructor. Right? So now we'll see one small program related to this constructor. Here I am going to show how many number of times. Here see, small example program will discuss about constructor here. See, here I am going to take like this class customer. Inside this customer what I am doing, I am going to write one constructor. Here def underscore init underscore self. Compulsory self must be required. Right. Now inside this what I am taking, just one print statement I am taking. Print customer class constructor, like this I took it here. Right. So next here what I am going to do, here I am going to take one more method at here. Here I am going to take one more instance method, def m1 method I am taking it here. Self. Inside the same what I am taking, print customer class instance method, like this I took it here. Customer class instance method, like this I took it here. So now here see, now what I am going to do, here inside customer class I have one constructor and I have one instance method. So now when this constructor will be executed, when this constructor will be executed, if you create object for customer class, if you create object for customer class, then only this constructor will be executed. If you create object for this customer class, then only this constructor will be executed. Right. When this M1 method will be executed, if M1 method wants to execute, compulsory we have to call this M1 method explicitly. If M1 method wants to execute, compulsory we have to call that method M1 method. But coming to this constructor, we no need to call this constructor explicitly, directly, just to create one object, automatically that constructor will be executed. But M1 won't be executed automatically. We have to call that method explicitly, then only that method will be executed. So now here what I am going to do, see, just I am going to create object for customer class. C1 is equal to customer. C1 is equal to customer. Like this I created object for customer class. I created object for customer class. See, here what I am doing inside, at the time of creating object, automatically this constructor will be executed. Inside what we have print statement is there, you will get output customer class constructor. Now if you run this one, see, here I am not calling init method, just I created object, automatically the constructor will be executed. Now you will get this output, customer class constructor, you will get as output. Please check once. Here, Python, see, customer class constructor. What we are getting? Customer class constructor. See, here I am not calling that init method anywhere. I am not calling that init method anywhere. Just I created a object for my customer class. Automatically inside customer class, whatever constructor is there, that constructor will be executed. Suppose if you are not providing this constructor, no problem, PVM will provide one default constructor, that a default constructor will be executed. See, here you are getting only output, customer class constructor. You are not getting customer class instance method. This method not executed. But when this method will get executed, we have to call that method explicitly. Then only that method will be executed. When that method will execute, we have to call that method explicitly, then only that method will be executed. Now here what I am going to do here, C1 is equal to C1 dot M1 method. C1 dot, by using object reference we are calling that M1 method. See, from outside of the class, if you want to call any instance method, how you can able to call? By using this reference variable, we can able to call M1 method. Here now if you run this one, what you will get? You will get both the things. You will get both print statements, customer class constructor, customer class instance method. Customer class constructor, customer class instance method. Now both print statements got executed. Both the things will get executed at here. Right, here what we are doing, just here I am writing one constructor and just I am writing one M1 method. When constructor will be executed, if you create customer object, then only constructor will be executed. Now here you can able to observe one more thing. What? See, here how many objects I created? Only one object. Right, already I told one point. Per object constructor will be executed only once. Per object constructor will be executed only once. Now if you run this one, see how many number of times you are getting customer class constructor? Only one time. Means what? That constructor got executed only one time. Per object only one time that constructor got executed. Now here what I am going to do, I will create one more constructor. C2 is equal to customer. C2 is equal to customer, like this. Now what it will happen? This constructor will be executed two times. Constructor will be executed two times. One time for C1, second time for C2. One time for C1, one time for C2. Two times it will get executed. See, constructor class, customer class constructor, like that. Here, how many number of objects you are creating, those many number of times this constructor also will be executed. How many number of times you are creating objects, those many number of times constructor also got executed. Per class, how many objects we can create? We can create any number of objects. For a class we can create any number of objects, there is no any restriction, but per object constructor will be executed only once. Per object constructor will be executed only once. Is it clear? Is it clear? Constructor, is it clear? Per object constructor will be executed only once, only. If you want to call this m1 method, if you want to execute this m1 method, it won't execute by default. You have to call this m1 method explicitly. You have to call this m1 method explicitly, then only this m1 method will be executed. Right. So next, so in last class somewhere we discussed about right how many ways we can declare instance variables, how many ways we can take the, how many ways we can represent the data inside the class. What are the different ways we have to represent the data inside a class? We have three ways. One is by using instance variables, by using static variables, and by using local variables. What are the different ways we have to represent data inside a class? We have three ways are there. What three ways are there? One is by using instance variables we can represent, by using static variables we can represent, and by using local variables also we can represent. Right, instance variables we can call as object level variables also. Static variables we can call as class level variables also. Local variables we can call as method level variables also. These are the points, these are the main points which we have to remember. Right. So now I am going to show how to declare instance variables. How to declare instance variables. See, here we'll see how to declare instance variables. Right. Here to declare these instance variables we have multiple ways are there. To declare these instance variables we have multiple ways are there. What multiple ways are there? What multiple ways are there to declare these instance variables? Right. So we can declare these instance variables inside constructor. We can declare these instance variables inside constructor. How we can declare instance variables inside constructor? Like this. Here somewhere we have declared. We can declare instance variables inside constructor like this. In yesterday class we have seen. In yesterday class we have seen one example. So here what we did, here what we are doing, C number, C name, C address, C salary. These are the instance variables only. Where we declare these instance variables? Inside constructor. This is the constructor. Inside constructor we are declaring instance variables C number, C name, C address, C salary. These four are the instance variables. Inside constructor we are declaring. If you want to declare instance variables inside constructor, what we required? We required a self argument. Self argument. By using self argument we can represent instance variables. We can declare instance variables inside the constructor. First way we can declare instance variables in multiple ways. We can declare instance variables in multiple ways. First one, inside constructor we can declare instance variables by using self argument. By using self argument we can declare. Here what we are doing, inside constructor we can declare instance variables by using self argument like this. This is the example. Here what we are doing? We are declaring instance variables inside constructor by using self. By using self like this. See here what we are doing. Constructor. Init means constructor only. Inside constructor, instance variables means C number, C name, C address, C salary. How we are declaring these instance variables? By using self argument like this. Inside constructor, we can declare instance variables by using self argument. Right. Second approach. Second approach. We can declare instance variables inside instance method also. Inside instance method also. We can declare instance variables inside instance method also. How you can declare instance variables inside a method? How you can declare instance variables inside a method? You guys know how to declare instance variables inside a constructor. So now we'll see how to declare instance variables inside instance method. See, def m1. Instance method means compulsory self must be required. Right. Inside instance method, how we will declare? Inside instance method, we can declare by using self only. Self dot customer role, customer job. We can take manager. So like this we can take it here. Right. Inside instance method, we can declare instance variables by using self argument only. Inside instance method also, we can declare instance variable by using self argument only. Next one, right, outside of the class also we can declare boss. Next approach is outside of the class also. Outside of the class also, we can declare instance variables by using object reference variable. Right, see, first one, what is the first approach? Inside constructor we can declare. Second approach is, right, outside of inside instance method we can declare. Third approach is outside of the class also we can declare by using object reference variable. But inside constructor and inside instance method we can declare by using self. But coming to outside of the class, we can declare by using object reference. Right. So now we'll see one by one. We'll see example also. One example program we'll see for those things. One example program we'll see it here. Here I am taking one class customer. Here I am taking one constructor def underscore init underscore self. I am taking like this. Right. Inside constructor, what I want to do? I want to define instance variables with self argument. Self dot c number is equal to 100. Self dot c name is equal to Raju. Self dot c sal is equal to 10,000. Right. So like this we can declare instance variables inside constructor by using self like this. Now same instance variables we can declare inside instance method also. How to declare? Def m1 method self we have to pass. Inside this what we have to do, just self dot C salary. I am taking it here, otherwise I will take C address. Here I will take C address. C address is equal to Chennai. Like this I took it here. See, inside constructor by using self, inside instance method also by using self, I declared all these instance variables. So now I am going to create object for this class. C1 is equal to customer. C1 is equal to customer. I created like this. Now, right, whenever we created object, all these constructor instance variables inside, whenever we created customer object, automatically this constructor will be executed and all instance variables will be added to the object. Where is the proof? Print, you can see like this, C1 dot underscore dict. Right, now what it will do, it will print all custom instance variables which are available inside the object in the form of dictionary. Now see here, if you run this one, what you will get, C number 100, C name Raju, C salary 1000 you will get. So now whenever you called this method explicitly, inside object this C100 is not available. See, you can see there is no C address. When this C address also will be added to the object, whenever you called this M1 method explicitly, whenever this M1 method will be executed, here the time only C address will be added to the object. How M1 method will be executed? We have to call that M1 method explicitly. See here what I am doing? Here I am going to call C1 dot M1 method I am calling. So now here again I am asking, hey, see what data is available. I want to check. C1 dict like this I took it here. Now if you run this one, what you will get? Previously here we have C number, C name, C salary only. Now you will get C address also. See, C number, C name, C salary, C address also came. So like this, we can declare instance variables inside constructor and inside instance method also. What is the third one? Outside of the class. Outside of the class means here we can able to declare. How to declare outside of the class? By using object reference. Here what is the object reference? C1 is the object reference. Now here we can declare C1 dot customer job type. Job type I am taking like this. Here customer job type is equal to permanent. Like this I took it here. Again here I am asking, boss, print this one. Boss, print inside customer object what data is there, print once. Again I am asking it here. Now you will get all three. Customer job type also is there. See here what I am doing. Here I am declaring instance variable. This is the way of declaring instance variable. I am declaring instance variable. Where I am declaring? Outside of the class also. Here where I am declaring? Inside constructor. Here inside instance method. Here outside of the class I am declaring. Now here what I am doing? Again I am asking, array C1 what data is there inside object? Please print. Now it will print all the information. See? C number, C name, C salary, C address, C job type also we are getting it here. See here if you observe it here we are getting C job type also. C number, C name, C salary, C address, complete information you will get like this. Is it clear? What are the different ways we have to declare instance variables? 3 ways are there. What 3 ways are there? First one is inside constructor we can declare by using self. Inside instance method we can declare by using self, outside of the class we can declare by using object reference. Outside of the class we can declare object reference. So these are the different ways we have to declare instance variables. Is it clear? Clear? So now what we have seen in today class, what is a self variable? Self is a default reference variable which is representing current object reference. Self is the default reference variable. It will represent current object reference. What next we have seen? Constructor. Constructor is nothing but a method only. But constructor name always we have to take underscore init underscore only. And one more point, inside constructor at least one argument compulsory we have to pass, which is self argument. Right. So per class, per object, how many number of times constructor will be executed? Only once constructor will be executed. When constructor will be executed, at the time of object creation, automatically constructor will be executed. Is it mandatory or optional? Constructor is not mandatory, it is optional only. Clear? Next, what we have seen? Instance variables. What are the different ways we have to declare instance variables? 3 ways are there. One is inside constructor we can declare, inside instance method we can declare, and outside of the class also we can declare instance variables. Is it clear? Thank you. In next class we will